Ever notice how some companies just have that, like, put together look,
Hmm.
Like their employees always seem to be dressed just right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, it turns out there's a lot of strategy behind that, and it all comes down to something we might not always think too much about, dress codes.
Yeah, and today we're doing a deep dive on how to create a dress code that actually works.
We're talking stylish, legally sound, and something your team can actually get behind.
Exactly. And to help us navigate this, we're turning to an article from the Unit Consulting,
Okay?
a Texas-based HR firm that specializes in helping small to mid-sized businesses with, well, pretty much all things HR.
Perfect. So they're the experts. I'm already sensing this is going to be way more complex than just like throwing out a business casual and calling it a day.
You're absolutely right. The Unit Consulting really emphasizes that a dress code is about so much more than just like how people look.
Right.
It's really a powerful tool for communicating your company's values, and for building a cohesive work environment.
I can see that. Like you walk into a tech startup, everyone's in hoodies and jeans, right?
Right.
But then you go to a law firm and it's all suits and ties. The clothes definitely send a message.
Exactly. And the article breaks down the core purposes of a dress code into three main categories:
Okay, let's hear them.
professionalism, safety, and brand identity.
Okay, yeah, those make sense.
And each one plays a really crucial role in shaping how your company is perceived, both internally by your employees
Hmm.
and externally by clients, customers, and the public.
Right, so let's unpack these a little bit. Professionalism, I mean, that seems pretty straightforward. You want your employees to look, well, presentable.
Yeah, but it goes beyond just looking sharp.
Well,
It's
yeah.
about reflecting the level of competence and credibility that you want your company to project. Think about it. If you're meeting with clients or attending industry events,
Mm-hmm.
you want your employees to be dressed in a way that inspires confidence and trust.
Right. It's like that old saying, dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yeah, exactly. And that applies to the company as a whole.
Interesting.
Your dress code really helps define your company's image, and it sets the tone for how you want to be perceived in the marketplace.
So professionalism is about image and perception. Got it. Now, what about safety? I mean, that one seems pretty self-explanatory, especially in certain industries.
Right, certain workplaces definitely require specific attire for very practical reasons.
Hmm.
The article specifically calls out healthcare and manufacturing, where dress codes are often tied to protecting employees from potential hazards.
Makes sense. No flip-flops allowed on the factory floor.
Right, exactly. I mean, think about healthcare workers needing scrubs for hygiene purposes, or construction workers needing steel-toed boots to prevent injuries. The dress code in those cases is directly linked to employee well-being.
For sure. Okay, so we've got professionalism and safety covered. What about brand identity? I feel like this is where things get a little bit more, interesting.
Yeah, this is where it gets fun. It's all about aligning your dress code with your company's culture and values. Like a creative agency might encourage a more relaxed and expressive style, while a financial institution might opt for a more traditional and formal look. The clothing basically becomes a visual representation of the company's personality.
So you're saying a dress code can actually help attract and retain employees who fit with the company culture.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you're someone who thrives in a fast-paced, innovative environment,
Okay.
you might be drawn to a company that allows for a more casual dress code, right?
Yeah.
And conversely, if you value structure and tradition, you might feel more comfortable in a workplace with a more formal dress standard.
That's a great point. People want to work somewhere where they feel like they belong, and clothing can be a big part of expressing individuality and fitting into a group.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really crucial aspect of dress codes: clarity.
Okay, yeah. So let's get into the nuts and bolts here. How do you actually go about creating a dress code that's both effective and enforceable?
Well, the unit consulting is very adamant about this. Clarity is key.
Okay.
Vague terms like business casual, they can lead to so much confusion and inconsistency.
Because one person's business casual is another person's, like, I just rolled out of bed look.
Exactly. The article really stresses the importance of providing specific guidelines and examples to avoid any ambiguity.
Okay.
So instead of just saying no jeans,
Uh-huh.
they recommend specifying like acceptable denim styles, washes, and conditions.
So instead of a blanket ban, you could allow, say, dark wash jeans without rips or tears.
Exactly. And you know what else can be super helpful?
What's that?
Visual aids.
Interesting.
Like, think about including photos or illustrations in your dress code policy to illustrate what different dress code levels actually look like.
Oh, yeah, I like that idea. Like a side-by-side comparison of acceptable and unacceptable business casual outfits.
Exactly. That would eliminate a lot of the guesswork.
Yeah. The goal is to make it crystal clear what's expected so that no one feels like they're, playing fashion police,
Right.
constantly second-guessing their wardrobe choices.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of clarity, but let's not forget the legal side of things. This is where having some expert guidance, like
Yeah.
what the unit consulting offers, can be so valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Dress codes can be a legal minefield if you're not careful.
Yeah, we need to make sure we're not accidentally, like, discriminating against anyone or violating their rights.
Exactly. And that's where the unit consulting's expertise really comes in.
Okay.
They help businesses navigate all these complexities and gray areas to make sure that their dress code policies are both effective and, legally sound.
Because the last thing anyone wants is a dress code that lands them in legal trouble.
Exactly. And the article does a really good job of highlighting those potential legal landmines.
Okay, good.
They stress the importance of considering three key areas:
All right, I'm listening.
religious accommodations, gender equality, and disability considerations.
Okay, yeah, those are all super important. Let's break them down one by one. So, religious accommodations. I'm guessing this is about, like, allowing employees to express their religious beliefs through their clothing and appearance, right?
Precisely. You can't just have a blanket ban on certain types of clothing or accessories
Right.
if they hold religious significance for some employees.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Think about headscarves, turbans, religious jewelry, or even certain grooming practices.
So a company couldn't just say, like, no head coverings allowed,
Right.
because that could be discriminatory towards someone whose religion requires them to cover their hair.
Exactly. And the unit consulting points out that there's this legal concept called undue hardship,
Oh,
which basically means that you can only restrict religious attire if it poses a significant burden or safety risk for your business.
so, like, if a particular head covering could get caught in machinery or something and pose a safety hazard, you might be able to make an exception.
Exactly.
But it has to be a legitimate concern, not just like a personal preference or an aesthetic thing.
Exactly. And even then, you'd want to explore all possible accommodations before, outright banning something.
Mhm.
Could the employee wear a different type of head covering that might be safer?
Okay.
Could the work environment be modified to, mitigate the risk?
Yeah, it sounds like open communication and a willingness to find solutions are really key here.
Absolutely. And that same spirit of inclusivity should extend to considerations around gender equality.
Okay, so no more saying women have to wear skirts where men can wear pants.
Right, exactly. Or having stricter rules about makeup or jewelry for women than for men.
Got it. It's about creating a level playing field and respecting everyone's right to express themselves within, reasonable professional boundaries.
Exactly. And finally, we have disability considerations, which are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA.
Okay, so this is about making sure your dress code doesn't unintentionally exclude or disadvantage employees with disabilities.
Right. You need to be prepared to make reasonable accommodations, even if it means bending the dress code a bit.
Okay.
So, for example, if an employee has a mobility impairment, that makes it difficult to wear certain types of shoes.
Mhm.
You'd need to work with them to find a solution that meets their needs while still aligning with the overall spirit of the dress code.
So maybe they could wear a specific type of supportive shoe that isn't typically allowed,
Right.
as long as it's, neat and professional looking.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing that not everyone can conform to a one-size-fits-all approach
Yeah.
and being willing to find solutions that work for everyone.
Now, I know we talked about the unit consulting helping businesses create dress codes, but it sounds like they also help with navigating these legal considerations too.
Oh, absolutely. They have a really deep understanding of employment law, particularly in Texas,
Okay.
which has its own specific regulations to keep in mind. So they can help you craft a dress code that not only reflects your company culture,
Hmm.
but also ensures that you're in full compliance with all applicable laws.
So they're kind of like a one-stop shop for all things dress code related, from creating the policy to tackling those tricky legal questions.
Precisely. And they bring this very practical, solutions-oriented approach,
Hmm.
which is so valuable when you're dealing with something as nuanced as a dress code.
For sure. Okay, so we've got this amazing dress code. It's clear, it's inclusive, it's legally sound.
Right.
But what happens when someone just shows up not quite meeting the mark? How do you handle those situations in a way that's effective but also, respectful?
That's a great question, and it's something that the unit consulting addresses head on in their article.
So let's talk about what happens when you've got this great dress code in place,
Yeah.
but someone just like completely misses the memo, shows up not really following the guidelines.
Right, that's the real test, right?
Right.
The unit consulting, they actually provide some really practical guidance on this,
Okay.
on how to handle dress code violations in a way that's effective, but also, like you said, respectful.
Yeah, because no one wants to be the dress code police.
Right.
But you also need to, you know,
Uphold the standards.
uphold the standards you've set for your workplace.
Exactly. And the article really stresses the importance of addressing those violations promptly,
Okay.
but privately, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to let things slide, but you also don't want to create a big scene or embarrass anyone.
Right. So no calling someone out in the middle of a meeting
Oh, no, no.
or like making snide comments within earshot of others.
Exactly, yeah. They suggest pulling the person aside for a quick private conversation, you know, something along the lines of, hey, just wanted to chat with you quickly about our dress code. Today's outfit doesn't quite align with the guidelines, so let's take a look at what's expected.
That's a good script.
Yeah.
Direct, but not like accusatory.
Exactly. You're just reminding them of the policy.
And giving them a chance to kind of course correct.
Now, what if it happens again? Because, I mean, let's be real, some people need more than just one gentle reminder.
Right. Well, that's where consistency is so important. The unit consulting, they're really big on this idea of applying the same standards to everyone,
Okay.
regardless of, you know, their position or how long they've been with the company.
Yeah, no playing favorites or letting things slide just because someone's like a top performer.
Exactly. If the rule is no open-toed shoes, then it applies to everyone,
Right.
from the intern to the CEO.
Got it. Consistency is key for fairness and, you know, to avoid any perception of bias. The article also mentions documentation, right? Why is that so important when it comes to dress code violations?
Documentation is important because it protects everyone involved.
Okay.
It creates a clear record of, you know, what was said and what actions were taken,
Okay.
which can be really valuable if there's ever like a dispute or a pattern of violations starts to emerge.
So it's like having receipts, basically.
Exact, to back up your actions, just in case things escalate.
Right. You want to be able to demonstrate that you addressed the issue fairly, consistently,
Right.
and in accordance with company policy.
Okay, so you have the conversation, you document it, and then what? Do you just like send the person home to change?
Not necessarily. The unit consulting suggests like giving the employee a chance to rectify the situation right then and there if possible.
Okay.
Like maybe they have a spare blazer in their car,
Right.
or they can borrow a cardigan from a coworker.
Or if it's like a uniform issue, maybe the company has some spares on hand.
Exactly. The goal is to just find a practical solution, right?
Yeah.
One that works for everyone and allows the workday to continue smoothly.
Okay, so we've talked about first-time offenses.
Mm-hmm.
What about those like persistent violators? The folks who just can't seem to get with the program no matter how many times you talk to them?
Well, at that point, things might need to like escalate a bit.
Okay.
The unit consulting recommends incorporating those dress code violations into the company's disciplinary process. Okay.
This might involve, you know, verbal warnings, written warnings, or even performance reviews that address the issue.
And I imagine those consequences would need to be like super clearly outlined in the company's policies
Of course.
so that everyone knows what to expect, right?
Yeah. No surprises. Everyone should be crystal clear on the consequences of repeated violations.
And this is where all that documentation from those earlier conversations really comes in handy because it shows that you've, you know, addressed the issue consistently and given the employee plenty of opportunities to correct their behavior.
Exactly. It's not just about catching people breaking the rules.
Yeah.
It's about providing support and guidance to help them, you know, succeed.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive. It's clear that creating and enforcing a dress code is way more nuanced than most people probably realize.
It really is. And even though we've covered a lot today, it's important to remember that every company is unique.
Yeah, for sure.
What works for one organization might not work for another. That's where getting expert guidance can be so helpful. And resources like the unit consulting exist to help businesses figure all this out.
Absolutely. They have a ton of knowledge and experience, especially when it comes to Texas-specific regulations.
Yeah, those can be tricky. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or you just want to make sure you're doing everything right,
Give them a call.
give them a call. Their number is 956-230-6866.
They can help you create a dress code that not only reflects your company culture, but also, keeps you out of any legal trouble.
Well, I think we've officially decoded the dress code. A well-crafted dress code is an investment in your company's image, your employees' well-being, and a more harmonious work environment.
And as always, the key is to be proactive, informed, and to, get expert advice when you need it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone, and we'll see you next time.